Hey, what's up, comrades? Hope you're all doing great. We're getting down to the last couple of games here. So to start off with, we're going to talk about Shining Blade, but I wanted to talk about Shining Hearts a little bit because I tried playing it and I could not get... I played it for about 3 hours, to be honest, but at some point I just could not do it anymore. So I mentioned this before. So this is another one of these Japanese games. In fact, every game like Wind, Shining Force, Feathers, Shining Hearts, Shining Blade, and Shining Arc only came out in Japan. Now somebody went through and did machine translations on Shining Blade and Shining Arc and put them into the game, did the translation thing, so you can just play through the game and you get translations. Now the translations are kind of shit, but I appreciate that they were done because I'm playing through these games anyway, and it's the same Google Translate that I'm using, only it's just put in the game, so I don't have to keep lifting up my phone or doing whatever else. Someone did some real good work there. They just allowed the machines to translate it, which is not the best, but it does allow us to play these games and get the vague gist of what's going on. I would say it works pretty decently well. People give machine translation a hard time, and it's not giving you there are several times where it's things seem contradictory or things don't make sense, but it does the job, right? For what it needs to do. No one else is willing to do this. I think Gurgle is the one who did Blade and Arc. Now that being said, I was able to get through Wind and Feathers because the games are pretty straightforward in their playing style, right? You just have the main story and you just go through the main story, and there's some other stuff. And Wind was helped because there was a guide, and Feathers there was a guide I found that was just a speed running guide, and it was okay. If you're gonna play through it legitimately, I cheated in these games, but if you're gonna play through it legitimately, it's very helpful because it gives you hints on how to get through the battles and whatnot. But with Hearts, there was no guide and there was no translation. So the advantage I had here at first was that instead of using my phone, which was a nightmare and made getting through Feathers and Wind really tedious, to be completely honest, that I finally found a emulator, or not an emulator, I found a translator called Lunar, I think it's just called Lunar Translate or something like that, which is designed specifically for hook translations in emulators, right? So then when I slapped it on to Shining Hearts, which is a PSP game, it was excellent. It translated everything. It did machine translation, obviously, so some stuff was still kind of a little wonky, but it worked very well. So you could just play through the story, and then you have this little over window thing that I just put right over where the text box pops up, and then it would just translate things instantaneously. It was very, very good. It also translated menus and stuff. That became a little more complicated because it was just grabbing all the text. When you open a menu, there's 500 different things, and so the little translation box would get huge, and then there'd be no spaces or anything. It would just have a list of things. So you kind of had to really read into it and try to figure out okay, so that first thing is this. Anyway, when you went to highlight stuff, sometimes it would adjust, but it was pretty rough, not gonna lie. But I was getting through it. Like I said, I played about 3 hours, and it's a turn-based JRPG game with a lot of like crafting and not really harvesting, like Harvest Moon kind of harvesting, but you like pick up a lot of shit around that you can use to make bread and whatnot. I was actually kind of grooving with it, but it got to a point where the main thrust of like the story is given through like these quests that you go on. So you get quests from like all sorts of people, and they kind of help. But then figuring out what the quests wanted you to do was like it was like very difficult to like kind of translate where you're supposed to go. In the game there's like a very convenient map that is like go here, and then with the translation stuff, and sometimes I had to pull out my phone to like look at like a very specific line of dialogue, because again the Lunar translation was grabbing like everything. But at some point I literally couldn't figure it out. Like I used the Lunar thing, and I was using my phone, and I was trying to figure it was like a main story quest too. I was trying to figure out exactly what I wanted, because it seemed like it just wanted me to make bread, and it kept saying like make milk bread, and so I made milk bread, and then it was like and then I was like, okay, that didn't do anything. How about so I was looking some more, and then it was like, okay, I think it's telling me to make 3, and so I made 3, and I tried to give them to like the old lady. I tried to put them in like in the bread box and all this stuff, and I spent like 20 minutes on it, and finally I was just like, this is like way too much work. Like I am not enjoying this at all. Like it seems like a delightful game, and it's part of like the series of like, so I thought Shining Tears and Shining Wind were like one and dones essentially, or two and dones, but no, Shining Blade is like a direct sequel to Shining Wind, and then Shining Wind X Tears is like it's like the Shining Wind from Sumero's perspective. There's like 6 games in like this series. There's like a mobile game too apparently that is related to all this stuff, to like this secondary. So like there's like now there's like 3 different like eras. So there's the original Shining era, which is like Shining Force 1, 2, Shining Shining in the Darkness, Shining Wisdom, Shining and all like the Gaiden games and stuff. And then there's like number 2, which is Shining of the Holy Ark and the Shining Force 3 trilogy, right? But that's like the Vandal stuff. And then now there's like a third one. Oh no, and then you have like, yeah, then there's a third one, which seems to be like Shining Soul, Shining Soul 2, Shining Tears, Shining Wind. Like these games all seem to be like loosely connected. Well, like Shining Soul 1 and 2 seem to be like loosely connected to like Shining Tears and the rest of them. And then there's like, and then like Shining Tears, Shining Wind X Tears, Shining Hearts, and Shining Blade. But so it goes Shining Tears, so it goes Shining Soul, Shining Soul 2, Shining Tears, Shining Wind, Shining Blade, and then Shining Hearts actually takes place after Shining, oh Lord, Blade, because it's essentially one of the characters has like these 3 girlfriends, and they all die as part of Shining Blade, which we'll get to. And it's like you learn about that very quick, and it's not really a big plot point. But then like there's this girl who's like a spirit whisperer or whatever, and she essentially creates like a world for that character to go and like be with his waifus again and like live some of their happier moments. And that's what like Shining Hearts is, it seems, based on like what I was able to like gather from like playing all the way through Shining Blade and playing Shining Hearts. And then there's that. And then there's like Shining Force Neo, which is like its own fucking thing, completely devoid of anything else. Well, actually, yeah, I think it's completely devoid of anything else. And then there's Shining Force Exa, which Shining Force Feathers is like a sequel to that. I don't know if it's even a sequel. It's just a game that takes place like in the same world. So that's like a whole separate thing. Yeah. So I think that's it. I don't know if I identify, because there's like 20 of these games. And then there's Shining Force Resonance, which is going to be the last game I play. So after Shining Blade is going to be Shining Arc, which it seems like it's just in its own thing. Like it's just completely independent. And then there's Shining Force Resonance, which again just seems to be like its own fucking thing. Right? So there are some games like that, but that's kind of like the chronology. There's like 5 different chronologies, technically more, in the Shining series that I was able to kind of like track down. There's like some fighting game too, which like brings in a bunch of characters from like the Shining Tears chronological situation. Okay. So that's my late. So that I learned all this trying to figure out the Shining Hearts thing and then the connection. Because Erwin keeps showing up, but she keeps getting different names. So I'm going to talk about her because she's my favorite. So she's Erwin in like the Shining Tears translation with the localization through Sega that came to America as like official translation, everything. And then when I was playing Shining Wind, it was Elwyn, right? Which the R and L are kind of like, that's like a weird translation thing because in different parts of Japan, they it's supposed to, it's like like ru, but like in certain parts of Japan, it's more of an sound. So if your name's like Ray, in certain parts of Japan, it'll sound like Ray, and in other parts, it'll sound like Ray. Like it'll be more of like an L sound. So when stuff gets translated sometimes, depending on where the translator's from or like what, they'll like translate it differently because it sounds different, or like how it's said in the individual show based on like the accents and stuff. And so having her be like Erwin and then Elwyn, I would say, it depends on like that, right? And it makes sense because Erwin is kind of like, that's a funny name, and then Elwyn is like, oh, that's like the elf from Lord of the Rings. So I see where they got that from. Okay, cool. All right, and then in Shining Blade, when she shows up, she's Rana, and I'm like, the fuck, like what? Like that is so different, right? Because the Japanese, like the Sega official translation, and then like the direct translation you using Google Translate, just grabbing the characters up, are almost identical, right? It's just like what comes up is different based on just like some old bullshit translation stuff or like accent stuff, right? Because again, the R and L are almost like they're like the same thing. You can like switch them out. But then Rana is like a totally different name, and I was like, what? And then at some point I figured out, because some other people show up from previous games, and they have totally different names too. And so I'm like, what the fuck? So then I look up their fandom articles on like those specific characters, and what I discovered here is that with it seems like Gurgle, the person who did the translations for Arc and more importantly Blade for like the overall name thing, is that what he was doing, so what he was doing was using first names, and the Japanese and then the direct Google Translate I use for Wind was using last names. So to get into that real quick, if you're not familiar, if you're not a weeb like me or care, in Japan it's very what you do, because they're very proper and have a lot of etiquette and stuff, you don't call people by their first names, you call them by their last names and then use an honorific, right? That's where like the san comes from. So like Shina-san or Kiria-san or whatever, right? Or sama, which is like a term of like you're higher than me, or senpai, which is like teacher or mentor, or kun, which means you have like a close relationship, and it's usually used for boys, and then chan, which is like a cutesy, it's like for little kids or like girls you're in love with and stuff. And then there's like ko, which is for like, it's like super cutesy kid stuff, and there's others, but anyway, and then when you become close, then you just straight up use the first name, right? Because it's like now you're like your wife or husband or like, you know, your kids or something. Like you won't necessarily call them like by their last name and what Chan or Kun or whatever. They'll just call them like whatever. And so in the official translation in Shining Tears and then my Google Translate for Wind, they were using last names. And so with some of the characters that I carried forward, I'm just going to keep using their like regular last names because that's what I'm used to. And then if you're like watching these videos, it'll be less confusing. But then part of the issue in this game, and it was at first I was like, that's weird. Why did this guy use first names? That doesn't make any sense. And then it makes a little bit more sense because several of the characters are related, like their sisters or brother and sister and stuff like that. And so if you were to use just the last names, it would get confusing real fast. So I think the game probably, like if I found the original Japanese, it would probably have done something different. But this guy just decided to use first names, which made it a little confusing at first because I was like, wait, who the fuck are these different people? Because like it's a Japanese game, so you never know. Like it could be like alternative dimensions or like whatever, or they just look the same or some crazy bullshit. You never fucking know with these things. So. But I think he just like grabbed the first names because it was easier than having like Erwin has like her sister in this game, like her younger sister. And so instead of just having like Erwin San and then other Erwin San when she finally shows up and you get to play her again, and she's so exquisite. Like she got hotter and hotter in every one of these fucking games, and she was already peak in like Shining Tears. And like God bless Taka-san or whatever the guy's name is who did the art design for all these games. Okay. So hopefully that doesn't get too confusing. I might switch just because when I do in my notes, sometimes I would use like the name that was on the screen because I was just trying to like type stuff out real fast. But I think that's everything. So yeah, so Shining Tears and Shining Wind, and then at some indeterminate amount of time later is Shining Blade, which is this game, because a lot of characters from like the other games show up, and it's kind of like and it has Dark Dragon again. So it's kind of like you start with Shining Soul with Dark Dragon being defeated, and then you get to here, and it's like he's been resurrected, and you beat him again for good. And there's like Soul Bladers, and there's all sorts of shit from like the other games. It's like it really is like the culmination of like this whole series. Like this is the final hurrah. So I think Shining Heart actually came out first, but it definitely takes place afterwards. Well, I say definitely based on just like all the stuff I was able to gather and just playing the limited amount of Shining Hearts and then beating Shining Blade and getting some of like it has like multiple endings based on again which girl you want to fuck. But again, it's like Japanese anime fucking, as in like, and not like hentai either. It's just like, oh, let's hold hands. Okay, the end. It's like a Nikkei Goddess of Victory Bond story for the most part. Although you do fuck girls in that too sometimes. It's just like off screen. Okay, so yes, I think that's everything about Shining Hearts. Oh, Shining Hearts is, yeah, you do a lot of baking in that game, and then it was fun. I just wish I could have like figured out the quest system. I would have played through it, but I didn't, so I won't. So now we can finally get to Shining Blade. All right, so let's get started with the game, the actual story. So it opens up. There's this cute elf girl. She's over on a beach, and there's like the King of Spirits from Shining Wind, only it's pink this time, so it's different. It's not the same one as from Shining Wind, I guess. Exact same design. Gets identified as not a King of Spirits, but some sort of just regular old spirit, I guess, like later on in the game. Because the actual like Kings of Spirit for each of the elementals, the elemental Kings of Spirit or whatever, become like a very important later on. So I guess the King of Spirits from Shining Wind got massacred at some point, and so yeah, rest in peace. We get all this later. Anyway, this elf chick, she looks somewhat similar to my dream girl, Erwin, and only she's got silver hair. And then she's got her uniform is exquisite because it's literally just like, I don't know, like a vest with like complete midriff and like her boobs like popping out of the top. And then it's like held together by like a ribbon. It's so good. Character design. This is like peak Shining character design. Like, not gonna lie. Like, I haven't played, at this juncture, I have not played Shining Resonance Refrain, which is like the last one. And that game came out pretty recently, I think in like 2018, 19 or something. And then they redid it, which is the version I'm going to play in like 2002 for Steam or whatnot. But thus far, I mean, like the character designs of this game are peak. And we get a lot of returning characters because this is, as I mentioned before, this is like a sequel to Shining Wind and a prequel to Shining Hearts. And so it's all the same character design. It's like a lot of the characters from Shining Wind and Shining Hearts make a return, which is excellent. Anyway, so I started playing and immediately I was like, Altina, huh? Good for you. Like you're my new elf waifu, I guess, in this game, which she is. Okay. So then she's okay. So she's on the beach. She finds this guy like conked out, this human, and she's very concerned because humans are not supposed to be let into like the Silver Forest or whatever they call it in this game or this translation. And then there's a sword there too, and then there's like a cat, and so there's a cat, a sword, and a human. And then there's the Altina with her like little friend, the spirit creature. And so the cat starts begging, and the sword start talking to Altina, and they're like, hey, can you please help us out with this guy? And then Altina like correctly identifies the cat as being a Kate Sith, which is like a spirit fairy thingy or whatever. It doesn't get expanded on this game, but just like that's where it originates from. It's like a mischievous spirit creature. And the sword calls herself Yukihime. I'm just going to call her Yuki. And then they let Altina know that the boy's name that's crashed out on the thing, and he has like bright red hair, but his name is Rage. Okie dokie. And that he needs help. And so because of like her little spirit friend, she's kind of like, all right, fine. Meanwhile, in the boy's nightmare, he's having a nightmare, and he's protecting some girl in like red armor from a bunch of like bad dudes in black robes or whatever. And apparently they get driven to like a cliff where he falls off, crashes in the water, and that's how he ended up in the Elven Forest, like waking up there. So once he actually wakes up in like Altina's house, he freaks out and runs out. The Altina's out there just like chilling. And then his katana has like a magical girl transformation because it's a spirit's blade of some sort. And then she's hot too. So it's like, God, it's so good. So she's like a sexy maid spirit, like a Japanese maid, but like sexed up, not just like the Japanese maid thing is like a whole, that's like a fetish on itself. But this is like, again, like boobs filling out, like midriff, like sexy ass, all this stuff. It's peak fan service. It's so good. Like literally, and like the developers know what they're doing. Like we need more developers like this in Japanese games. I'm not gonna lie, because they literally during the magical girl transformation, it like rests on her giant D cup like tits for like a few seconds. And she's transforming, and you don't see you don't see tit. It's all covered by clothes and stuff, but still, it's like this is so. I was like, God damn, this game is excellent. Oh man, and so then so Rage starts talking to Altina about how she needs to rescue somebody, and then Yuki's like, hey, I'm really concerned about you like being like knocked out, like you literally passed out and almost died and stuff. And at that point some monsters show up, so we get into like our first tutorial fight. And then this game plays a lot like Valkyria Chronicles, which is a more popular game. And if you don't know what Valkyria Chronicles is, I'll explain the battle system right now, which is where you have a team of characters in this one, and the same battle system occurs in Shining Arc. We'll talk about it in that. That's kind of like the sequel to Shining Hearts, I would say, if you're playing these like in correct chronological order, which I did not, because I did not realize these were all related, because Shining, like the haters on the Shining Force forums like they swear away from these games, which is kind of retarded. But anyway, and so the way it works is you have a team. The team is pretty small. In Valkyrie Profile, from what I remember, you could have up to like 10 or so people on your team, but it was more in depth there because you had like 3 or 4 different classes, like anti-tank, tank, machine gun, like something else. You had 3 or 4 or 5 classes of characters you could have in each battlefield, and you had more of them. In this, I think you can only, if I remember correctly, you can only bring 5 at a time, I want to say. And then you have 3 reserves, so if you have multi-battles, which occur on occasion, you can like switch them out. Depending on like what kind of the battle system you want, so you can get pretty strategic on that. But then the differences are really there's 3 classes. There's like melee fighter, magic fighter, and like ranged fighter. And ranged fighter is like the bows. And then there's a girl with like a gun because she's like a mech, or she's like a cyborg. And then you have just the wizards. And the wizards, when they attack, they do less damage. They do the least amount of damage, but they can attack like multiple people at the same time with their regular attack. Everyone has like magic powers as well, or forces if you call it that, if you can call it that. And then like Altina and a few other people, they're ranged fighters. So they get a bow or a gun or whatever, and so they can shoot from far away. And then like Rage is a melee fighter. So if he's not using his force, he has to run up. And then we get some characters later on that gain like an extra ability that can help with the battle as well. So, and then you can grab somebody to run with you, and then you can run up and you can set people up without using their movement, and you only have so much movement per turn, and then you get 1 action per turn, and then after that you become fatigued. So then, and you can choose to use people multiple, or like, and so then you can pick who you want to use next, and you have like so many crystals each round, and then the enemy gets to go, and that's how battle works, and that's the tutorial we get from this. So we run on the battlefield and fight. At some point I just like cheated and gave myself like unlimited moves, so I could just grab Altina, and then later on a very special character to my heart to just like do all the battles and get through them as fast as humanly possible. But there's just some amount of stuff you can do. And then certain bad guys, like the bosses specifically, you have, if you attack certain parts of their body, you can like break them, and then they are easier to go down. And then you can like team up. So if you drag Altina over to like a monster and rage attacks, then Altina will like also attack. And then the monsters will like attack you while you're running around a bit, but they do less damage. And then they'll counter attack, and then on their turns they're attack, and you can counter attack. Okay, so that's the game. So afterwards, we run around, fight. Okay, so yeah, we just fight with Rage by himself, actually, to start with. And then Sexy Altina like shows up for the second battle because we get surrounded by monsters. And then we get a second tutorial about teammates, about range combat, all that stuff that I just talked about. And then she gets mad at us afterwards and convinces us to stay with her and rest, and then to help her guard the Silver Forest, because we don't, it's like typical... like every one of these games, typical shonen anime or like JRPG. It's more JRPG. JRPG pro tag amnesia occurs, and he's like, "Well, I got nothing else to do. I just had this crazy dream about this random woman, so I might as well do what you asked." At this juncture, we start talking about like the forest and the realm we're at and stuff. And it looks it sounds like we're in Valeria, right? And where the Shining Tears and like part of Shining Wind takes place. Like Shining Wind takes place in like this other place as well, Liberia. And this, but then you go to Valeria, and that's where you meet Mao and stuff at the end of that game, or near the end of that game, and get Blanc to show up and whatnot. So this takes place in like Valeria, which is where Shining Tears took place. Like there's Shilda, there's this forest is like the elven forest that Erwin's from, or that she's the queen of, or princess of, or whatever. And then we start running into characters, and it's like very obvious, like this is just that it's the exact same map essentially as Shining Tears. We're like right in that world. There's like Bestia's around, Shildea's around, the Rude Fest is around, where Blanc is the princess of, or whatever. And yeah, Rune Faust like calls back to Shining Force, the original Shining Force, so that's fun. Oh yeah, and that Altina mentions that she's the main protector or something of this. Again, this game, there's machine translation, so sometimes I'm just trying to like put together based on what they're saying. It's much better having it in the game because I can just kind of like cruise through it. I don't have to keep using my phone and then just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm just going to skip all this because I can't understand it anyway. So then Rage starts telling Altina about saving this girl from his dream, and then we do another fight. And then we run into Selfnir, who's like a dark centaur guy, and we don't ever get centaur guys to join our teams, but there are the enemies, which is interesting. And like all this whole series of like Shining Tears, Shining Wind, Shining Hearts, Shining Arc, and Shining Blade. But we find out that Selfnir's looking for the same girl that we're looking for, so we fight him, we destroy him. Rage then mentions that his drive, quote unquote, is all the way back. So now we can go save the girl, and we find out the girl's name is Rosalind that he's trying to save. Altina then takes him to the center of the forest to sing to the spirits to help revive them and whatnot. And at that point we hear a voice, and it's from a girl from the holy city of Runevale. Altina calls her out. It says that she's with the centaurs because the centaurs are from Runevale, and if she's from Runevale, or like Selfnir mentioned that he was coming from Runevale and stuff, but she's like, no, that's not true, I promise. What actually happened is the Dragonia Empire like came in with their centaur army and like took it over and like banished like the princess, and she's like waiting somewhere else because she like took control of the army and like escaped. And then I came here to get some. I went to go join her because I ran off too because I'm like the court magician or something. And then but then I got lost and I ended up over here because I'm trying to get to like this other place like Sildi, like I'm trying to get to Shildea, but I ended up here instead. And then I think Altina's like, Shilda's like all the way the fuck over there, like what? She's like, doesn't matter if you got here or not by accident, you are not allowed to be here. And the girl finally introduces herself as Elmina. The remaining princess. Oh, the princess's name is Arya, and which if that name may sound familiar if you've seen my Shining Tears thing, because it's Blanc. Blanc is the princess of Runefest, right? So that immediately it's like, oh, this is like a sequel to that because she's the princess, and it's going by. This game does a weird thing, and I might pick this up again later when it becomes more prescient. But so when I was playing Shining Tears, the way the official like Sega translators did it is they used last names, and then when I was using the machine, and so that's the choice they made. And then when I was playing with the machine with the Google on Shining Wind, it also used last names. So that's clearly like the original design of the game was like people are using their last name. So like Kyria is the last name. His first name is like, I don't remember. I'm trying to think of somebody's name I actually do know. Oh, like Arya. So like Blanc is like her, it's like one of her many names, and then Arya was like her first name. But she was kind of trying to hide it, so it was like Blancneige. But then like Erwin's not her first name. Her first name's like Lana, and then her last name's like Erwin, I think. Yeah. And so, for example, if she shows up in this game, she's gonna have a different name. Anyway. So at first I was like, who's Arya? I was like, Arya, that name sounds vaguely familiar in these games. And at this point I hadn't put the connection together. This was like a direct sequel. Like when I was playing through the game at this early chapters, I wasn't super clear on the whole thing. Let's see. So blah, blah, blah. Sylvia. Yep. Probably Shilda. Yep. It was Shilda. Anyway, the Rage is like, all right. So then Rage is like, all right, let's do it. Let's go to Shilda and figure this out. And then Altina, you should come too. And she's like, no, I got to guard the forest and stuff. And he's like, no, you have to help us because if the Draconia Empire is like invading everywhere and causing problems, they're just going to come here next. So we better go stop them before they get down here and cause problems to your village. And she's like, okay, that tracks. Let me get approval. So that's the end of chapter 1. And then the chapter 2 rolls up and we're in Shilda and we find out that she did get approval from like the court of the elven elders and whatnot. They would take care of it and they would keep hiding and whatnot, so Altina could come and try to cut this thing off before it gets too crazy. And then once we get to Shilda, where you find out about the Valeria Liberation Front, which is this group that is like trying to free all of Valeria from like the Draconia Empire and them trying to raise Dark Dragon. Oh no, not Dark Dragon, fuck, that guy again. Yep, he shows up again. We kick his ass again. But up at this point, we have to go meet up with the vice captain of the Liberation Front, which is this Fenrir guy. Yuki gives us a real hard time at some point for not introducing herself properly when we get to Fenrir. It's Fenrir. Is like, and then and he's like, oh, you must be Rage because you have a talking katana named Yuki. And he's like, oh, how do you know all that? And then he's like, I have a guy. And it's Rick. Yep, Rick. Now, you might not know who Rick is. I was like, oh, it's Rick. Shit. Rick is the main character from Shining Hearts. And I was like, the fuck? That game's included? And this is when it started to like click in my head. I'm like, that game's related to this too? So it's like there's this whole... So there's like the Shining Force. As I mentioned before, there's Shining Force 1 through 2, essentially. Or 1 through Shining in the Darkness, for realsy. And then there's the Shining Force 3 plus Shining of the Holy Ark. And then there's like Shining Wind, or Shining Tears, all the way through like Shining Resonance Refrain, maybe. I don't know. We'll see how that game like ties in. But at least Shining Arc, right? And so to kind of, like I mentioned with Shining Hearts before, if Shining Hearts takes place after this game, so this is like the Rick pre that, but Shining Hearts came out before this. It's like a hot mess. And it's really just Shining Hearts is like the dream that he wanted to live with like his waifus, his like harem of women, because they all died. And he's super sour pot him as Sarah to meet him. Anyway, so Rick just shows up and it's like, oh, this guy's from Krantor, you're from Krantor. And then Rick's like, I hate you. You're an asshole. And you're the guy from the other world. And it's like, oh shit, this guy's from Elves. Like Shannon and Kyria and all that stuff. And I was like, God damn, games. So Rick is mad at Rage because he can't protect shit, and then he storms off, and Fenrir is like, bro, oh well, moving on. And then he says something about calling Rick the god of death for some reason, and I'm just like, the fuck? And then Amy from Shining Hearts shows up. Now Amy is she's the bread maker. So the 3 waifus in Shining Hearts are Amy, Iria, and like Neris, I think. And Neris is one's a shopkeeper, one's like the nun who works at the church, and then Amy is the one who like works at the bread store. All right, and I was like, God of Death, huh? And at this point, I hadn't put together that Shining Hearts takes place after this game. I like looked it up later because I was like, the fuck, man, I got to figure out this system. But yeah, that's how it goes. So first I was like, wait, did this happen after that? Did something terrible happen? And then she says something about somebody, I think Rage being their savior or Rick being the savior or something. And then, let's see. And then we get interrupted because the walls of Shilda are being attacked. And then Fenrir is like, I'm going to join the team. And then Rick's going to join the team, but he's like fights on his own or whatever. So we fight off the attack, we chase them, they run away, and then we head back to meet with Sakuya, who is fucking stacked, this hot bitch, man. And again, each female character that rolls up is like better than the last. Not better per se. Altina's the best thus far because obviously the elf thing and whatnot. But Sakuya is like stacked. And I don't recognize her at all, but there's a lot of people that you meet who like recognize her. And there's like a whole thing where it's like, oh yeah, she's been around doing stuff. And I guess she was in Shining Hearts. So the assumption is you got some backstory on her there that I never got, even though that takes place after this. It's so fucking confusing. Anyway, she's the captain of the Liberation Front. And so Sakuya thanks Rin, who is the cat, for guarding Rage, and then Rin does like a magical girl transformation into a cat girl. Awesome. Awesome tits. God bless you, Gabe. And then Rin mentions fighting as well, and so she joins the Liberation Front. And if you're starting to notice a pattern, I think you end up with like 30 people. No, I say 30 a lot. It's probably closer to 20. 20 different people that can be on your team, and only 8 at a time, with 3 in the reserve, can be in any active battle. But you have like a wide selection of people that you can like bring into battles and do sub battles with and all that stuff. And at this point, Sakuya calls in Eri, who's the priestess from Shining Hearts. And then Amy is like super psyched about it. That's like, oh, you're here and you're alive. And then Rage is about to ask something, and Yuki's like, hey, shut the fuck up, bro. And you're like, what? And it's like, just let sleeping dogs lie. And he's like, okay. But at that point, Rin and Sakuya officially join the team. And then we're free to like finally wander the town, and then we get a a tutorial about soul levels and questing and doing like bond quests with the girls so that we can unlock their like ending and all this stuff. And so like I was like, cool, awesome. At this juncture, we get like sorry to swallow. We get like 15 more fucking tutorials. Like we get tutorials about like every aspect of the game. We learn about souls, crafting new artifacts, leveling up abilities, leveling up artifacts, crafting this. We learn about free battles where you can go and grind levels, which is super essential if you're not cheating like me. We also get free quests where you can just go fight battles out in the world. You can do like these quests that just kind of go out and do whatever. These little, and then we get like side stories. So certain characters, you want to build their bond level, you got to go do their side stories and stuff. We learn about and you can go get more gear and stuff. We also learn about favorability, how you got to build it favorability if you want to get certain endings. And don't worry about the endings if you're playing through this game. You literally, it's just, holy shit, that dog's cruising. It's literally, there's a post game. In the post game, you can just like make up for whatever you didn't do in the first place, it seems. So then you can get all your like girlfriend's endings. So as long as you like work real hard, and then you get back there, like then you can like go through the endings that you like unlocked or whatever or something. Anyway, so you do that, and then sometimes when you talk, you get like a quick time event where you have like 3 choices or 2 choices sometimes, or technically 4 choices, where you can just like say nothing, or you can choose one of the choices. And sometimes you have to pay souls to get one of the choices. But then, and then you get like bonus hearts, or you go like you lose hearts depending on like what you decided. And so you want to get like positive hearts. So it really is all about like the save scum at that point. And sometimes when you choose the soul ones where you have to pay soul points, it's the bad. Like so, the whole thing is just kind of like random. It seems like if you're paying attention to the conversation, then maybe you could figure it out. But again, we're using like in the English is like a machine translated thing, which half the time I'm like very confused what the story is trying to tell me to do. And then you have these like side stories, and it's like Altina, I think at some point was like, "Oh, my hair. Doesn't it look nice?" And then like the responses were like, "Oh, the forest is great." You're doing. I'm sure you miss the Fairy King, and then something else. And I was like, I don't understand what this thing's asking me to do. Like I was like, and so then I just went through. I just saved state, and then just chose each one as I got the right one. And I was like, well, I guess this is how it's gonna be sometimes. Okay, so that was kind of annoying. At some point I just chose the wrong answer, and I was like, I don't give a fuck. I'm just going to keep going with this. Because there's, like I said, there's like 30 fucking characters in this game, and each one of them has their own little bond story and their own ending and whatnot, which is cool that they put all that shit in there. But it's like, I'm just going to go with Altina and Yuki and get their endings, and then everyone else is just like, if I stumble into their ending by accident, then like I will check that out. Spoiler, I did not. So that's what it is. I tried to get one ending, but I don't know if they have an ending, but we'll get to that person when we get there, because I really tried real hard to make that happen. But I think some people just don't have endings. So, and the game even said in the machine translation that the girls have endings. So maybe it is just the girls. But yeah, even like the non-waifus have like favorability, like Fenrir and stuff, but not Rick. Rick is like, go fuck yourself. Anyway, so we do all that, and then we grind some quests out. We get some bread, and that's right, bread. So you take bread. You can just buy bread before. Bread lasts 1 battle. You can buy it. It gives you like bonuses to stuff. So that's another level of strategy, which is cool. Anyway, so moving forward, so Sukiya mentions that there's a priestess and a dragon guy who are part of like the dragon shrine, and it's like, hey, it's just like in Shining Tears. And then Rick is like, hey, I will go, but I don't want anyone to die, and so Aria's gonna come with me. And we're like, okay. Anyway, so then Rage is like, nah, we're going too, man. And then Yuki's like, Rage, I told you to mind your own goddamn business. Oh, Rage, at some point, Rage is like, oh, that's funny. Amy and Ari, I wonder what their deal is. And then she's like, mind your own goddamn business. So we head into the battle, and Rage watches Ari transform into a sword and shield. And he's shocked, but I'm not, because that was the most obvious thing ever that was going to happen. Because we saw Amy kind of disappear for one battle, and then Rick had like this funky-looking sword. So we clear the path to the shrine, head back to town, and then Yuki and Rage talk about Ari and Emil and how they're soul swords, and that they're human, but that they died and became soul crystals, and then they were summoned from like the spirit world to help, and that And then we learned that Rage was ordered to save Rosalind, but was unable, which he was able to do, or he left with her, but was unable to save Crantor as a whole. And he feels guilty about it. And it's because he's like, oh, I see where Rick is mad because it's kind of my fault that those girls are dead. And Yuki's like, it's not your fault. You were doing your job. You can't save everyone, and yada, yada, yada. Yuki then turns into her sword form as Emil and Eri come in, and they confirm everything that we just learned about. They reveal that there's another girl, Neris, that was also lost, that Rick feels bad about, and they were like all friends, and because Rick lost them all, and then Tsukio was able to like save them from their soul with the soul crystals and turn them into like these weapons, and then they can like exist as humans and hang out with Rick and stuff as like spirits, but I guess he can't bang them, so that would kind of make you upset. And then so they can reunite with him. So they really want us to find Neris, which you don't find her at like the very end of the game. And then they also ask us to help Rick stop feeling guilty about not saving them and get on with this stuff. And so we learned that from that Rick and Rage are very similar in regards to the guilt they feel, and they can use that to like team up and be better friends or something. And so Rage wants to help Rick become like his fun-loving self and have a good time and all that stuff. And so he's like, definitely, I'm going to help Rick because he's my friend and all this stuff. And then Yuki gets like pumped up. Like super pumped up, and something about having like a good dream and everything's working out well. And then we get another fucking tutorial, and this one is about if you keep her mood up, somehow it powers her up, and then you can have like a super sword for that level, which makes Rage a lot stronger, which again is like a fun mechanic, but these tutorials are getting crazy. And then one of the things you got to do to keep her mood up is not work with other girls. Fuck you, game. So we head out, we kill a bunch of mushrooms. Yuki and Rage get into an argument because shown an anime pro tag and stuff, and then we head back to town. We then tasked with Tsukio to work with Rick on clearing another mission. Specifically, we learned that Rick was trained by her as well, so we're kind of like brothers to her. Like she trained us both in like the art of sword fighting or something, and so we both kind of fight in the same way and whatnot. And then we both got soul swords or something. And then after the battle, we see Rick helping out some guard, and Rage starts to soften on his opinion of Rick because Rick's just been an asshole, but seeing him be nice to someone else makes Rage feel even better about helping him out. We do some side quests, we help out the bread lady, and then Yuki wants to go out and like practice. So then she starts talking about her predecessors and how they were much stronger than Rage is, but that Yuki... And that they had a unique relationship, and that by accepting the past users and understanding them more, that Rage can become stronger. Something along those lines. So now finally it's time to head out to the Great White Dragon Shrine. So we head over there and we get a little scene, and hey, it's Ryuna and Lazarus from Shining Tears. Awesome. So... It's not like it's kind of them or it's mysterious them. No, it's literally fucking them. This is like takes place after Shining Wind, like I said. And at first I thought it was like a prologue, but then the more I play, I was like, no, this is like a sequel to Wind, not even Tears. Anyway, so we saved them from some skeletons, and we all chat. Sakuya is friends with Ryona because she's friends with everybody and knows everybody apparently. And there just seems to be a lot more that I'm not getting information about her and her existence and stuff. But we don't really. Maybe it's just a translation, or maybe I can go far enough in like her Bond story or something, but it just never becomes that clear. And then Ryona takes us to like a room in the temple, and there's like this android lady just like in the wall, and it's asleep until Sakuya like touches it, and then it wakes up and it swears allegiance to Sakuya. So then we get a cyborg too. So then now we got Ryuna, Lazarus, and this cyborg lady that join us. So now like we already have like 10 people in this team. We only use 8 at a time. Anyway, so we head back to HQ where Ryona mentions that Yuki is the Shining Blade. Hey, Shining Blade. That's the name of the game. And it's the sword that defeated the Dark Dragon in the past. Wow. I wonder if they're trying to connect this back to the Shining Force series, probably. But but she doesn't remember that because there's a seal on her. And so what we have to do is we have to visit all the Spirit Kings and get like a key or unlock something so that we can unlock her like true potential and fight the new Dark Dragon that's being summoned by the Dragonia Empire. And the first Spirit King we're going to go figure out is the Ice Spirit King. And so we head to the glacier north of Runevale where Arya is supposed to be like hanging out. And right as we're about to leave, Elmina, who's like the magical girl that like showed up at the very beginning and was like our second party member, and then I completely ignored until this point. Anyway, she says that she remembers now that it was not Shilda that she was supposed to go to. That she was supposed to bring the Shining Blade to Aria, who's the princess of Runevale, who's at the glacier. That's like, okay, I guess that's what we're doing. Anyway, so now she's going to take us there. And I was like, bitch, we're already going. What the fuck are you talking about? Anyway, so Rage is thinking about this and how she got like lost on the way, and they like have a funny argument about that or whatever. And then we have like, meanwhile, over at the enemy encampment, we see the Dark Dragon generals elsewhere. There's the Dark Dragon's like talking to him through like his spirit self or whatever. And he wants to have all the parts brought to him so he can return in the world. And I don't know what parts those are because it just says parts. Then the 4 generals bicker about stuff. There's Baldur, like the mage. I think that's his name. And then there's like werewolf guy. And then there's the centaur guy, Selfer, we fought earlier. And then there's like some dark elf, like Agria or something. And then he's like, all right, cool, I'm going to go over here. And so Baldur goes over and he talks to Rosalind. Oh, no, she's the Dark Lorelei. Goodness gracious. And then there's Fafnir, who's like controlling her. And it's like, ooh. And that ends chapter 2. So chapter 3 begins, and we're approaching the north, like the glacier area. And we get a new town to hang out in. That's cool. And so every time we get to like a new chapter, or not every time, but a lot of times we open up these new towns, and then we can bounce around towns, which is important for the Bond stories because certain characters, like Yuki, just hangs out in Shilia. So every time you want to like advance her Bond story, you got to go there and talk to her, do her quests. So even when you're in the glacier, you can like leave the town and then scroll over on the map and go do that. Anyway. Elmina mentions that it's super cold here, and Riona mentions that there must be some problem with the Spirit King because the Spirit King of Ice is supposed to like moderate the temperature, so even though it's supposed to be like a frozen paradise, it's supposed to be like a paradise, not just like fucking cold for no reason. They then talk about how there's dragons here as well, and that the dragons and the Spirit Kings are connected. So if we can find one, we'll get to the other, apparently. So then Princess Area is also up at the top of the glacier, so it's like everywhere we need to go and everything we need to do is like up at the top of the glacier, so that's where we're gonna head. So that's super convenient. So we knock out some side quests, and then we head up the glacier. On our way, we talk to Elmina, and she says something about Cert, who's the werewolf dark dragon general guy, and how he's like out and about doing bullshit or whatever. They call him Beastman or whatever, but then Fafnir is like, oh, I know that guy. And then before we can learn more, because he's about to be like, that motherfucker, an alarm goes off, and it's Cert, and he's attacking the supplies caravan. So we head off that direction. And then once we're at the battlefield, like nobody's there. But then Ryuna and Yuki mention that there's literally no one here. And Rage is like, yeah, I can see that. What do you mean? And, and I was like, I am also confused. And then Yuki mentions that this is not Eld. Eld is like Earth, right? It's like Japan where all the people come from, like Kiria and stuff from Shining Wind. And that the spirits, so when spirits on Earth or an Eld, they die, they like go to heaven or hell or whatever. But here they just kind of like hang out for a while, and that's how like Amy and Ari were able to like stick around and get turned into like magic swords or whatever. And then Ryuna points out that this must be something that Dark Dragon has done, that he's capturing these souls, because like there's the destroyed caravan and there should just be souls kind of hanging out around here. And it's like, fuck, that's what he's doing? That's crazy. And then we find some monsters, we kill them, and then Fenrir finds Cert's tracks. So we track him down, and then Fenrir and Cert go back and forth about how each one's an asshole and they're going to kick each other's asses and stuff. And then we kick his ass and he runs away, of course, because they run away a lot in this game. So we go to follow, but Tsukio's like, stops us, and she's like, we need to head back to HQ. There, Fenrir is getting drunk off his ass because he didn't kill Cert, and he's super upset about that. He tells Rage that not only are they from, both of them are from like some small tribe of beastmen, but they trained under the same teacher. And so, of course, obviously, Cert killed the teacher, and now Fenrir is trying to get vengeance and all that stuff. So very typical Japanese shonen anime story. So he has some very deep-seated feelings about the whole situation. Anyway, Tsukio says that it's time to move on, so we do. We fight through a couple of battles to get to the Ice Dragon. And of course we have to prove our worth. Like, the dragon's dope. He's just like, what's up, homies? And we're like, hey, we need access to like the Ice Spirit King or whatever. And he's like, well, you gotta prove your worthiness first. And it's like, goddamn, of course we do. Anyway, so it's a pretty fun boss battle. It's pretty big, and there's like parts you can break and run around and stuff. And then afterward we find Blanc-Neige. Yes, that's Princess Area, obviously, is Blanc-Neige, and she's here, and she's looking fine as fuck. She's looking a lot hotter than the last two games. Like, right at this juncture, I'm like, man, she's the top waifu, hands down. She's got this like slit in her dress. It goes all the way up to her fucking like hip, like fucking hot as shit. But not as good as Erwin. But like at this juncture, out of all the women, the various like harems, like the 7 or 8 women in this like team, she's hands down the best. And then And Altina's all right. She's like the next. Anyway, so she calls herself Islay in this one for some reason. And again, like I mentioned, it's like her first name, I guess. So that's what she's going by. And then the dragon's name is Blanc, which is funny, but whatever. It's Princess of Runevale, didn't come up and win, which is funny. Anyway, okay, we learned that Almina is a Lorelei at this point, which is a person who can awaken the Spirit King. And to awaken the Spirit King, she's got to sing a song while holding the Spirit King egg. Because we learned from the dragon that like the Spirit Kings like all got killed by like the Dark Dragons or something, or they just like died away, or because of there's some reason why they're dead, and so they have to be resurrected by a Lorelei singing to an egg, and that will like help unlock the sword and like resurrect the Spirit Kings. And so the Lorelei's, like Dark Lorelei, Rosalind, they sing songs and they make all this happen. And so she sings that song, it combines the power, it unlocks like 1/5 of the power of the Shining Blade. And then Tsukio, who is like a character I never use, but seems very important to the story, even though it's like hard to understand why she's like so associated with everything. She gets, every time you beat one of these dragons, they give her like an elemental power. So she gets like the ice elemental suit from this guy. And then Blanc joins her team. Altina at that point gets very concerned with the Silver Forest because the Earth Spirit King is there. And if like the Ice Spirit King got killed, then it means like the forest might be in danger. Or she says Wood Spirit King at some point, and then later on they say Earth. So it's like whatever you want to go with. I'm assuming we're just going to go with Earth. Sakuya says, yes, let's go check that out next. So we head over there. And so we help Elmina a little bit with her personality or something. This is like side quest we're doing. And it's just one of those like choice things about relationship with Rage and whatnot. Next we get word that Cert is still around, so we trap him so we can defeat him, while Blanc offers to take Elmina. Okay, so then we're like, hey, we gotta get this guy, but he's gonna keep running away. What do we do? Or how are we gonna get him to come out? Because he's just doing these like little raids, essentially, or sackings. And so then Elmina, they're obviously, the Dark Dragon's gonna want the Lorelei's. And so they, Blanc takes Elmina out and gets Cert to come out, and then we like jump his ass. He escapes again because it's a Japanese or a role-playing game. And then we're about to chase after him when we see Rosalind. Holy shit, Rosalind's here. And that Fafnir guy. And so she does her song, the Lorelei song, and starts gathering the spirits into like this lamp for like the Dark Dragon. And then Rage like totally loses it. And we get a flashback of them meeting each other and becoming friends. And Rage goes to call on her, and Rosalind doesn't recognize him at all. Then Fafnir takes the heart thing from the heart blade, right, from Shining Wind. So this guy's obviously like Kiria or Sumo or Tryhard. So we fight and beat them, and then they run away. And then Rage is about to chase after him, and Tsukio and Rinrin stop him and say that it won't help. We have other things to take care of first. We gotta unlock the Shining Blade, and then we can like work on Rosalind or whatever. We then get some outro scroll for Chapter 3 about driving the Empire forces out of Runevale and how we were able to head to the Silver Forest next. And then Chapter 4 starts with Altina leading us through a secret entrance so we can go visit the elves, which is super verboten! But she does it anyway because Slifner is here attacking the elves, and they all move to like a secure location where they're like hiding out, but it's only a amount of time before they get there. And then the normal way to get to the elves is all blocked off by the powers that be or whatnot, the Empire forces. So we come into the forest, we get stopped by the guards. Altina needs to see the chairman like immediately, and he's super mad that she brought outsiders in. Altina defends her position as the elves need help, and the chairman, who is her uncle, and if you know anything about Shining Tears, you're like, oh shit, here it comes. And because it's the same guy from Shining Tears who was the chairman before. And that means that Altina is a princess and the younger sister of Erwin. Awesome. And then he starts complaining about the other princess, and I'm like, oh, here we go, baby, here we go. And he calls her something else, calls her like Rana, yep. And then Altina is like, big sister, and I'm like, yes, hot sister elves, I'm in heaven, this is amazing. Then Aaron apparently showed up, headed over to see the Earth Dragon. Ryuna then speaks up and brings Rage forward with Yuki so that she can show the chairman and all the elves like the Shining Blade to know how like important it is that we get in there and that we're allowed to like have free reign of this area, which does work. It convinces the elves like, all right, we got to stay here. They're going to stay here and fight, and we're going to send them to the Earth Dragon and help out with the Earth Spirit King thing, and then everything's going to be great and whatnot. And then we're going to help out with the village. So we're like, all right, let's do it. So we knock off some side quests and do some Bond story stuff, just as usually after we for a bit. We're just trying to make sure we build up Altina and Yuki, to be completely honest, at this juncture. So eventually we decide we're going to head over into the forest and get the Earth Spirit Dragon, the Earth Spirit the King Earth Spirit, the Earth King Spirit Egg. Yeah, and fight the dragon. All right, so Altina talks more about her sister, which is continually getting me excited for Irwin. Some Irwin action coming in. And I am not disappointed as we run into Irwin. Yes, and they call her Rana, which is her first name, apparently. So Irwin, or Erwin, or Elwin is her last name, which makes Altina also Elwin as well, which is, again, the name of the elf beauty from Lord of the Rings that hooks up with the half-elf Strider. God, what's his fucking name? Aragon. And which is what Xion is in Shining Tears, so it's kind of a direct rip-off of that. Anyway. Sorry, man. So at this point, she becomes my main waifu, even though I cannot romance her. Rage cannot romance her, because she's with Xion, obviously. But I use her exclusively from here on out, and she looks hot as shit, y'all. Like, every game, she was getting better looking. Like, Shining Tears was good, Shining Wind was even better, and this, it's like, holy shit. And now she's in Shining Arc, which is the follow-on game to Shining Hearts, which I am not playing, and she's not in Shining Hearts, because that'll take place in Rick's head, essentially, and he has no connection to Erwin whatsoever. But in Shining Arc, she's all right. Like, she's definitely right. I would say she's right around the Shining Wind level of super hotness. But this, man, she's literally wearing, like, a vest with, like, no sleeves. Or it's got, like, these, you know, like the elf sleeves, which is, like, not real sleeves. They're, like, these willowy pieces of cloth just, like, barely hanging on. And Altina's got the same thing. Like, she's just, like, wearing blue and has silver hair, and Erwin's wearing green and has blonde hair. But so she's wearing this like vest with her like arms hanging out, and it's like you can see like all the way up to like her cleavage almost for like midriff, and it's like barely covering her sides. And then there's like a little ribbon like trying to barely hold on to her massive tits in this thing. Like there's like cleavage for days. It is like exquisite. Like I love it. I love every second of it. I was like, God damn. And then she's hot from behind too. God, this game, fuck this game. Hell yeah. Anyway, so we take our new. Oh no, we don't get. She doesn't join the party quite yet. We just like follow her in. We find the dragon, the same bullshit with like, hey, you got to prove yourself. Like, all right, fine, fucking prove myself. We kill the dragon, or we beat the dragon. He gives us the egg. We find out that Altina is the Lorelei, which is super obvious. As soon as we found out that like singing had anything to do with this game, it was like, well, she was singing at the beginning of this game. She's clearly going to be the Lorelei of the Elven Kingdom, right? And she is. Tsukio gets her little like earth magic uniform or whatever, and then we unlock a little bit more of that Soul Blade action. So good stuff. And at this point, Rana joins. Hell yeah, or Erwin. It's actually supposed to be Lana, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, and it was like, God damn, yes, peak design, love it. I'm so happy my baby elf queen is back. Like, it's so good. Let's see, skirt, thick ass, yeah, everything about it, man. Like I'm not joking, y'all. Like. I play these erotic visual novels, right? Which is literally like on the verge, if not like straight up pornography. And like there are girls in those games are more covered up than fucking Erwin is in this game. Like, and not just her. Tsukio's like her boobs are like blasting out of her like her top. And then like I said, like fucking Blanc is like there is like you were like almost at ass territory with this like dress she's wearing. It is the design. This is like peak design. Like this guy has good designs in all these games, and like all these fucking babes and whatnot. But in this game, like Jesus Christ, man, he is like functioning on all cylinders, and the dudes all look cool and masculine and fucking shit. Like this guy. If I was ever to make like a real game and not just like my little like RPG maker things I get bored and like chop out there, right? I would track this Japanese man down and have him make all the designs. It is fucking so goddamn good. Like, like I'm telling you, if you're not looking at this video, it makes Fairy Tail look tame, man. And Fairy Tail is exquisite as well. But like, there are like the designs in this. It's just like, damn. Like, this is like as lewd as you could possibly get. Like, this is like Nikkei Goddess of Victory hiring like Eroge manga like artists to make some of their characters level of like excellentness, man. It is so fucking good. Anyway, God, I can't get over it. So Erwin tells us more about the Dark Knights for the Draconia Empire, and then we need to stop them and save the forest. We need to drive them the fuck out. And the Dark Knights are all the centaurs and whatnot. So we go and we find Selfner and drive him back to the capital of the Kingdom of the Elves, and then we free the capital. We talk to the council and chat about what to do next. She convinces Erwin shows up and convinces everyone that we need to fight, and then we need to push into the capital, and we need to reclaim the Elvish kingdom. And finally, the elves, who are kind of like a peaceful people in this story, they're like, all right, fine, let's do this. And then it's not even just like Erwin is my like elven queen of all time, like number one elven waifu of all time. She is literally becomes the queen here, but she was the princess of the kingdom, right? But if she officially, they make her like the queen right at this point. And she's like, all right, we're gonna do it, but this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna go fight, and we're gonna do all this stuff, and it's excellent. But the best part is they're like, we've decided we want to make you queen, and she's like, nah, I'm busy. And she's like, make Altina do it or something. And they're like, no, you got to do it. You're the best. And she's like, okay, if you insist. Oh, damn, it's so good. So then again, her first decree is that the whole Elven kingdom is going to join the Liberation Front and fight back against the Empire. And so, and then once we beat the shit out of Silfner and drive them all out, she's like, all right, council, you're in charge. Adios. I'm going to go keep doing this stuff. And her uncle, who's like the chairman, is like, Nani desu? And she's like, tee hee hee. God damn. Next up, we have a little council with the Liberation Front. We're trying to decide what the next step is. And Fenrir brings up the Beastman Kingdom. Bestia or however you want to pronounce it, and like, all right, yeah, let's do that. There's the fire spirits over there, and there's a dragon and the volcano, and yada yada yada. And that wraps up chapter 4. Chapter 5 begins with us getting over to the Beastman village, where we meet Jin Crow. Hey, it's Jin Crow. Awesome, badass. That guy, he's so cool. It's got a great design. He tells us that the king's dead. Wah, wah, wah. There's no mention of Mao, and she's not in this game. We get Rin as like our cat girl expertise, but like Mao, they're just like, no, fuck her. She's out of here. We had enough of that. And honestly, I don't care. She was hands down the worst waifu from Shining Tears, so I'm like, that's fine. Oh, man. Anyway, we also find out that the 12 generals are all missing and dead, which kind of sucks, and that the Dark Elf Albrecht is here. And once Albrecht gets brought up, Rick is like, wait a second, I want that guy dead. Let's do this. And so Rage and Rick argue, and then Saki has to break him up again. And also, the Empire took all the boats, so we got to do something with the Empire first so we can get boats to take over to the Volcano Island so that we can do the fire stuff and unlock the Shining Blade some more and whatnot. So time to knock out some more side quests and relationship stuff before we move on. So first thing we got to do is like rescue some civilians and whatnot. So Fenrir is like, all right, let's take a small force and go do on that and take care of that. And then Rick's like, I'll go, and I'm going to go alone. And Sakio's like, nope, you're taking Rage. And then there's an argument about it. And then we end up taking just the whole fucking force. Like the whole Liberation Front, which it's still a small force, to be fair. It's at this juncture, I think we're at 11 or 12 people. So we go out, we rescue the people. So what happens is I think Rick and Rage go out by themselves, so it is actually a small force. And then the rest of the force shows up for like battle number 2. We tell Fenrir and Tsukio to take the injured while we stay behind and fight. And then afterwards, Rick and Rage talk about how this place was used to slaughter innocents, and there's some like nefarious stuff going on here and whatnot. At that juncture, Albrecht shows up. But we had the fuck out of there. After reporting in and Rick losing his title of God of Death, as the people finally see him as a savior and not a destroyer, because he saved a bunch of people this time. Rage and Rick and Yuki talk about how the Empire is doing and why they're so evil and all this stuff. It was hard to gather. I knew that's the gist of what they were talking about, but again, the translation. Anyway, back at the HQ, we get introduced to the Pirate Knights. And they are pretty boring for Pirate Knights, to be completely honest. There's this captain guy, and then there's like a quiet guy, and he loves to fight dragons, and that's it. So we get 2 more party members. Just like, all right. So we go with them to Volcano Island. When we head inside, we find and fight the fire dragon, and once we beat him, he's like, oh, this is so excellent. We're like, all right, we need the king of the spirit thing or whatever. And he's like, nope, don't got it. And it's like, what? And it's like, I gave it to Siren. She's half dragon. And you're like, okay, where's she at? It's like, oh, she's off. She left a long time ago. And then it's like, yeah. And then the fire dragon, like looks up past it. Like he like turns around and like points at this cave. And he's like, yep, she left through there. And you're like, how far through there? And you're like, 2 seconds away. Like, I was like, God damn, we're going to have to track this lady down. And then literally, we're just like, okay, let's go. And so we like immediately walk to where she's at. And she's obviously in a fucking hot tub in the volcano, completely nude with her boobs hanging out of the top. And she's guarded by this like panther guy. And so we get 2 more characters. So now we're up to like 15 at this juncture. Like, jeez. But anyway, she's pretty hot. And she's not like a dragon-looking girl. She's just like a blonde chick who does fire magic and whatnot. But yeah, she beat the fire dragon first. Oh, and Tsukio got her like fire cloth or fire uniform from this guy as well. The Panther Man's very like coarse with us. He's very like short and blah blah blah. And anyway, she's got the egg, and then we're talking to her, and it's like finds out, hey, guess what? Not only does she have the egg, she's also the Lorelei for the fire spirit. So we get her to sing "Unlock the Seal" for Yuki, and then she's like, let's do this, and then she joins with her Panther bro. Like at this point, I literally wrote down in my notes like the cast is insane in this. Like it's like every other level you're like getting more cast members, and it's like I can't keep up with all these people. Like I'm cheating and like I'm giving myself like 1,000 times experience per battle, and I still can't keep up with all the levels. Like you got to like trade out dudes like every battle, and then like you get new guys, so you got to trade them out. And like I don't think I maxed out everybody. I maxed out like the main cast of crews, which is like my waifu army. But other than that, I was just like, whatever. We take Siren and back to the headquarters and show her around, but she's super unimpressed. She does mention Rosalind though. And then we have to go back out and fight Albrecht. So we do. After we beat Albrecht up, Rosalind and Fafnir show back up again. Rosalind's like crying, so clearly Rage feels that he can save her and that there's like more than meets the eyes. So this is talked about for a while. Then we fight, and they run away again, and Rage calls out to her, which ends chapter 5. Chapter 6 then rolls on in with Clara. Yep. From Shining Wind rolls up with an army from Thilius to help fight. Because if you remember from Shining Wind, the people of Valeria, specifically like Erwin, and I thought Ryuna was dead, to be completely honest, right? I think I even mentioned that in that review. It seems like they like hint at it in that game. Like there's like 2 people who die, but I think it's the werewolf guy and somebody else. Anyway, so I was wrong about that. Anyway, so Phyllis, I think she shows up by herself. She doesn't bring Chris or anybody else at this juncture, but she shows up with her. I mean, so she joins the party, and because we helped, because like Blanc and Erwin and stuff helped her people like in Liberia, that she brought her army here to help drive off the Draconian Empire and help everybody, I guess. And we get a little short side story with all the bad guys again, like a little side, like, oh, what are the bad guys doing? It's like they're complaining because we're kicking their asses. And then this guy, the Earl, who got brought up like one time, he's like, I'm going to give you more soldiers to fight. And like, who's this guy? And it's like, I'm sure the game explained at some point who this Earl was, because Sukiyo seems to know a lot about it. But like in this, the machine translation did not get across the information at all. So he's just some guy that we like fight and eventually kill. And he's a bad guy for reasons unknown. I guess like all the bad guys in this are kind of like reasons unknown. And at some point, the bad guys are all talking. They mention Rage specifically and the Shining Blade, and they're like, we need to do this. So we're going to go attack Shilda specifically. So back at Shilda, we're chatting with Clara about everything that's going on with Dark Dragon and stuff and catching her up. And then there's an attack! And so we take Clara out to stop it. And they summon some sort of like monster, ancient device, golem thingy, which causes us to retreat back to the HQ. We talk about how we're surrounded and how things looking pretty hopeless. And also Altina and Rana are gone, or the Erwin sisters, I should say. And then things seems like super hopeless when my queen, Erwin and Altina show back up. And they're like, hey, we went down and got the elves to come up too, and they're helping too. And then someone went to Runeville and got Bestia, and so Bestia and Fontina have come to support the defense of Shilda along with Phyllis. And so they all agreed, and this is the reason they joined up, is because Rage helped them out in their time of need. Because the magic of friendship and doing the right thing, and anime being an anime protagonist, all these countries joined forces to fight the Draconian Empire, who cannot hang at all. Ryuna mentions that once upon a time there was a Shining Force raised up to defeat the Dark Dragon, again referring to the original Shining Force game. Or Shining, yeah, that's the only thing they could be referring to. Well, it's Dark Dragons and Shining Soul. He's in Shining Force 1, and I think that's it. He gets brought up a couple times. Like someone threatens, I think it's Yam or whatever, threatens to resurrect him, maybe? I could have sworn he shows up somewhere else. He's not. No, that's that crazy chick. Yeah, that might be the only time he shows up. Anyway, so good stuff all around. So we beat up the Draconian Empire, including their giant mech thing. We just kick the shit out of it. And this causes them to retreat out of Valeria completely and back over to Krantor, which is like this other area over there. And then there's like an island where the Draconian Empire is actually at. So we celebrate and discuss heading to Krantor to continue our fight. Meanwhile, we head over to the bad guys, and they're in complete fucking disarray. But the Earl calms them down and reminds them that all they have to do is resurrect Dark Dragon. So even if they don't beat us, as long as they're able to get enough souls and resurrect Dark Dragon, then they will win. And so they just got to put up a big defense and then make sure he gets summoned. And they're all like, oh, ho, 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 ho. And also they need to secure the last Spirit King egg, so the Shining Blade cannot be unsealed, because the Shining Blade is the only thing that can hurt Dark Dragon, and it will kill the shit out of him, apparently. So they send Fafnir and Rosalind over to do that, which ends chapter 6. Chapter 7 begins, and we learn about Chaos Gates, and they're out in the desert by Bestia, and that they're rifts between worlds. And this is not like the Chaos Gates, or whatever they were called in Shining Wind. These are like a specific giant Chaos Gate, not like a bunch of little ones we got to go in and close and stuff, because we're the Heart Swordsman, or the Spirit Swordsman, or whatever. So then we spoke to... and the game is like... They're super ominous about this gate and everything, and like kind of like mysterious. And then we speak to Sukio about some of the information that Jin Crow has. He tells us that his people have found these large towers in the desert as well, and these towers of vast interest to the Empire, so they may be related to the Spirit King. And of course, it's time to go check it out. So we head over there, and it's just a bunch of buildings from Eld, so Rage's homeworld, obviously. And so we get closer, and we see Selfner fighting Sheena, Kuria, and Zekti. Yeah, they're all in this game. 3 more. So, and we find out that Sheena is apparently Rage's older sister. Kanan, I think, is Sheena's their last name. She's Kanan, or Kanan. She's Kanan, and he's Rage, Cena, or something. They both got red hair. You get it? Anyway, and then we see Zekti in a schoolgirl uniform. So clearly, when I played the original, I did not get the correct ending, because there's an ending if you follow after Kuria or Sheena where you go back to school, I guess, and Zekti probably comes with you there. So I guess I didn't get the right ending. I read about it. Anyway, so once we beat up and drive off Silfner, they mentioned another name that I'm familiar with, but I gotta believe it's like Kuria. Like, it's because it was like Kaito or something, and I was like, that's a first name. Like, it's probably Kuria. He's probably in this game too. And this is the part where I was like, I do something I normally don't do, because I try to get all the information from the game I'm actually playing. But because of like the translation stuff and like the name confusion and stuff, I was like, I gotta look this up. So this is where I went online, and I figured out like all the first name, that they were using first names here, not last names like they did in the other 2 games. So I was like, okay, thank goodness, I figured it out. Anyway, so back in town, we talked to Kuria, and it's clear that Rage has like a little crush on Kuria. She's like a little bit older, and he's definitely got like the hots for her, because he keeps flirting with her, and she's definitely one of the girl endings you can get. And then apparently Kuria is also a Lorelei, as she keeps talking about being able to, she feels like a sense that she's being called by the Spirit King. And then Zekti mentions that she is a spirit user. Okay. And sounds good. First time that's come up in this game. And then she knows that the Thunder Spirit King resides in the astral plane. So somehow the Emperor got in there, fucked up the Spirit King, and then noped out, causing the Chaos Gates and bringing in parts of Eld. So including the egg and the Thunder Dragon God all got kind of transported here from the astral plane. So now we have to go find the dragon and beat its trial so we can get the egg before Silfner gets it. So we head back into the desert. Kuria leads us through a couple of battles. We find Silfner, and we finally kill him. Like, for real, kill him. Like, he's dead. Like, thank goodness. Rage makes some comment about him having a piece of his heart left or something, and I was like, okay, it doesn't ever come up again. Not important. Don't worry about it. I think what he was trying to say is that Selfner, like, turned to the dark side, but that deep inside somehow he still was, like, a good guy, or he still had, like, a piece of, like, his original heart before it was corrupted by Dark Dragon. That would be my guess, just from, like, the 10,000 anime and JRPGs I've played, and have this game being pretty cliched, to be honest. Even though it's pretty fucking awesome. And, like, again, the peak design, character design. Then we get the Dragon King and the egg that we cannot find. There's like no one knows where they're at. Kuria keeps mentioning that, like, I felt them, but now I lost them, and all this stuff. Rage literally thinks about how he's like super turned on by Kuria, and it's awesome. And then we return to HQ. Fenrir's scouts at that point are like, oh hey, we found the Thunder Dragon. He's over there. So like we're out in the desert wandering around with Kill Selfner, and Kuria's like, I lost it. What are we gonna do? Oh well, I guess we'll go back to HQ and think about it. And the first thing you hear about when you get back to HQ is Fenrir is like, my scouts found him. It's like, why did we even go out there in the first place? Oh goodness. So we head out. We fight our way over to him. We beat him. He gives Sukio her last. Oh no, it's not the last. She gets is it her last? This might be her last outfit. The Thunder outfit. I can't remember if she gets another one or not. We get the egg. Korea gets the egg. She breaks the seal by singing and all that stuff. And then Sheena and Rage go back and forth about a bunch of random like sibling stuff. And it's like hilarity ensues. It's a lot of like, oh, we have something, something, oh, something, something, something. I didn't write it down because I didn't understand half of it. And I was just like, well, it seems like they're doing that thing where siblings like joke about and chat with each other and whatnot. So that's cool, I guess. And then we head out to Kranto for the final battles of the game. And that ends chapter 7 and leads into chapter 8, which opens up with Rage being super anxious, like out of nowhere. Like he's not been anxious or concerned this entire game. So all of a sudden he's like, oh, I'm very concerned about how we're going to progress in this fight and what we're going to do. And the Draconian Empire's got to be stopped. And but they've stopped us completely from entering like Krantor. Like every time we try to do something, Albrecht shows up and like stops us. And then we try something else and it's just not working. I'm super concerned and whatnot. And so we do some side questing, specifically, like every time we get a chance, we go visit Yuki, Altina, and of course, Erwin to do little side stories and romance options and whatever. Again, like Erwin doesn't have any romance options necessarily. We just chat with her. A lot of chatting with Erwin is her trying to get us to bang her sister, which like I'm for. I got no beef with that whatsoever. So yeah, obviously that's what we're doing. And then the elves, the elves are so fucking hot. Anyway, finally we go and talk to Rick, and he wants to beat Albrecht really, really, really bad. And so he says that he's going to tell us why. Rage is like, why do you want to kill that guy so bad? And he's like, I'll tell you why. And then he doesn't. Literally. It's just like, well, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, okay. So then we attack. We decide somehow that we're going to attack the port town of Ponto. Because I guess there's like a weak spot there or something. So we go in there, we beat up the guards, and we just take it over. And now we're in Krantor. Super easy. Rick is excited because this is his hometown. He's like living his dream. We talk to Fenrir, who tells us that Rick is being crazy because he wants to storm off by himself, again, of course, so that he can rescue Neris, the last of the girls from Shining Heart. So we tell him that we will help, and so does Rin. Then Tsukio's like, all right, let's all go. So we go, and we fall into a trap. Wah, wah, wah. So we have Rick, Rinnin, Tsukio, and Rage fall into a trap because we're the only ones to go. The whole Shining Force didn't go. And Neris is there, but she's a spirit now, just like Eri and Amy, that Albrecht was using to create this trap so he could destroy us, because Rage specifically is the one that they need to trap, right? So Tsukio transforms her. So then the real Neris is actually there, so she comes up, so she gets transformed to a weapon for Rick, and then we hold off the enemies so the rest of the Shining Force shows up. Albrecht summons Fafnir and Rosalind, but now that all 4 Loreleis are all gathered together, something odd starts to occur. Fafnir takes Rosalind out of there like immediately, and then Albrecht's like, take me with you, and he's like, no. So we we surround him and burn that motherfucker down, and fuck that guy, he's dead. With that, Rick feels more loose. He feels like he's doing great. The girls that he's with are, now that he's got his like harem back, he's like, oh, thank goodness, I feel so much better now. And he apologizes to Rage for the way he acted this entire fucking game. And Rage is like, no problemo, homie. I understand. If I was missing one of my 3 waifus, I'd be super upset too. Next up, Rosalind has been spotted at the sacred tree or something, the sacred area near the port. So we head there and we find Fafnir and Rosalind, and it's time to fight. After we fight them, Tsukio's like, all right, Fafnir, give the girl back, give her heart back. And so he does. He just takes the sword and like puts it back in her and is like, done. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on, game? And then she's like, let's get out of here. And Fafnir's about to pick up Rosalind and bring her with us. And then the Earl shows up, and he blasts Fafnir, who is, dun, 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 Kyria! That's right, Kyria. Because Kyria came. And so then we get like a whole story. Because, and this goes back to like some of the fighting. Like stuff here started making sense to me. Like I think we got a lot of this information, but it didn't make sense until now because I was trying to like understand who they were talking about and characters and stuff like Sheena and Kuria and Zekti when they first ran into Rage back in the desert, and then when they were having like their rival, they kept saying things and talking about like so and somebody, and like I was just trying to like follow along, but because of like the translation or the name changes and just not knowing Kuria's like first name at this juncture, I was like super confused what was going on. But so what happened is that at some point in Eld, Rage disappeared, right? Which means Sheena's super pissed off because it's like, where did he go? But then Sugio was like, hey, I gotta go. I'm gonna go like to America or something. I'm gonna go somewhere else for a while. I'll see you guys later. And then Kiria's like, I am also going to visit family somewhere else as well. And then they disappeared, and then no one heard from them for a long time. And the reason why is because Sugio felt like she needed to come to Eld, and I don't remember her being in Shining Wind, so I don't know how she got like pulled into this, but apparently she's also from Eld, which is she trained Rage in like kendo in Japan, right? She's like a senpai, right? Like his mentor at the high school that they were all going to. And then Kiria is also like, his senpai. And so, anyway, so he came here, and then Tsukio and him decided that like, hey, this whole thing's going to go off and we want like an inside man. So then Kiria volunteered to like pretend to join the Draconia Empire. And then he specifically sought out the role of like taking care of Rosalind. And then he did all this stuff to kind of like an inside job, because they knew that like Dark Dragon was going to grab one of the Loreleis. So like before all this game even started. And so he went in there to like grab her, and then he also grabbed the spirit egg, like the final one, which was like, did I write it down? We have to kill the magic dragon, the Earl, just need to find the egg. Okay, no, we're gonna get to that. Okay. And so then Sheena's like pissed, because she's like, why didn't you tell me this is what you guys were gonna do, you assholes? Like, we all journeyed here for Shining Wind and whatnot. And at some point I'm like, is Tsukio supposed to be the girl, like Tryhard's girlfriend, like the witch? Because she kind of looks like that at this point. Like, I'm probably like, is that her? Like, that's got to be her, because she was kind of like a magic user, and in this she's like a magic user. And I'm like, I was so confused, and because I'm like, shit. I didn't pay that much attention to her, and again, it's using first names, but it's like when I look at her in her uniform, and then I think about like Shining Wind, I'm like, I think that's her this whole time. So then I was like, oh my god. So they didn't bring any of the men over, and even Kiria doesn't like join the team. He just is around, and you can have a little story with him. But like, Rosalind joins the team, right? Anyway, let's see. Give the heart back. This game. Anyway, so then the Earl shows up. He blasts Kiria. Yeah, so he blasts Fafnir. The helmet comes off. It's clearly Kiria. And he has a magic dragon, so we kill the magic dragon, which is too easy. And then we find out that Kiria came to Eld on a purpose, Tokyo. Help with the situation, infiltrated, blah, blah, blah. Okay, then Rosalind wakes up and she feels absolutely terrible. Now, she remembers everything, all the bad stuff she did. And Rachel's like, it's not your problem, girl. You're doing great. We just need to find the egg. And like, how are we going to find this egg? And then Rosalind mentions that the Empire never found it either. And then Kiria's like, about that. They sent me to get it, and I got it. Here it is. It's the moon egg, the moon spirit king egg. And so Rosalind unlocks the final seal of the Shining Blade, and Rage mentions that he feels like Yuki is so much stronger now. And Yuki's like, you bet your ass I am. And it's like, all right, here we go. So then it's time to head to Krantor across the ocean to like this island so we can like finish the game. Meanwhile, the bad guys are totally freaking the fuck out. Well, Baldur is. The other three, which are like Cert, the Earl, and Dark Dragon, are just like, I'm not worried about it. And Dark Dragon's like, I'm not scared of some ancient sword. Fuck that sword. And the Earl's like, yeah, we should be fine. We have a lot of like, bullshit here and stuff. We'll be fine. And it's like, well, they should be worried because here we're coming. That wraps up chapter 8. So at this juncture, Chapter 9 begins with us finally being like, all right, time to go to Dragonia Island and take care of this shit once and for all. But as soon as we're about to do that, dun, 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 Cert rolls up, the werewolf guy. Wah, wah, wah. So we got to take care of his business. So we do some side quests, Heron quests, no rush on any of this shit. So, we go, we kill him for good. And then the Earl shows up, and he's got a bunch of ancient machines and whatnot. So we retreat so we can do more side quests and more bullshitting around. But then we finally go and we talk about fighting the ancient machines and doing all that stuff. And then we discuss fighting the Earl, fighting the machines. Okay, yeah. Then we face him in like a 1 versus 20 or so of my fucking teammate battle. Like he's like, I will fight you 1-on-1. Rage, and it's like, all right, let's do this. And then the whole team shows up, and it's like, okay. So we kick his ass, destroy his machine, and he dies. And now finally, it's time to move on Baldur and the Empire. So we head over there, we do some battles, we find Baldur, who has already summoned Dark Dragon. Oh no! Dark Dragon is super hungry, so he goes and eats up Baldur. He goes, yum, 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 yum. Sucks to you, bro. Then we fight. And of course, this is a JRPG from like the 2000s, so there's like 15. I think there's 4 versions. So we fight, we win the first round. But that's not enough, so we go for round 2. After that victory, it's still not enough. Dark Dragon does something and breaks Yuki and then starts laughing about the sword and whatnot. So then all the Loreleis, Altina, Elmina, Santa Maria, no, just kidding, Korea, They all do have A names at the end. No, there's Rosalind. She doesn't. Okay. I'm missing one. Oh, the dragon chick. I forgot her name. Anyway. Oh, Siren. And Siren. They all sing their song about Yuki and everything, and it like they sing the song that was on the seal that they all saw when they broke their part of the seal, and this turns Yuki into like a giant lightsaber thing, and then we get the most ridiculous thing ever, the most ridiculous final boss ever. So if you're watching this, you probably played Final Fantasy VII at some point in your life, because why else would you be interested in this like obscure Japanese like action role playing game from like, I don't even know, this game came out 2003 or something. Anyway, so in Final Fantasy VII, spoiler alert, I guess, when you finally beat Sephiroth like the third time or whatever, you go and Cloud and him like fight in a black room or whatever, and pretty much you just like use your limit break of, God, what the fucking thing is called? Octoblade or something? So anyway, you use that and it just kills him. And it's like, cool, that was like a battle that we played, but it was also cinematic. This is similar to that. Only what you do is you run up and you hit Dark Dragon like for like 9,999 damage like 3 times. And the whole time you're running up to him, you're just like parrying his attacks. And it's just Rage all by himself with Yuki as the sword. And then we get like characters in the party making comments and stuff and saying, I believe in you, Rage, and we can do this. And it's like 3 to 4 party members. So since there's like 30 goddamn party members in this fucking game, we do this like 6 times. 6 times. Right? Like we run up, hit him, and then we get this like long like talk with all like our friends and like some scenes, and it's all very nice and whatnot, but it's like, holy shit, bro. And then the thing is as well is that it's not like written out like I can read it. It's like a cutscene, and I don't speak Japanese that well, and so I have like almost no idea what they're talking about. Like I'm catching words here and there and stuff. And Yuki's appearance changes at some point as well here. Instead of having short dark hair, she has long silvery hair or whatever. So after that the whole thing took like 30 minutes. After that extremely long section, we finally have defeated Dark Dragon, and then we watch all the spirits that he collected, and he's like, no, and he's like dead for good for now, because we created the super shining force blade or whatever. And so all the spirits start heading back to like whatever spirit place is, and then we chat with like just the Loreleis, and then the credits roll. But that's not the end of the game, because now it's time for Chapter 10. And so Chapter 10 is where you can go and do all like your heroine quests, finish them up so you can get your heroine endings, like in Shining Tears. Or like in Shining Wind had like endings too, but they were not really heroine endings. They were kind of like not greatly implemented. And then if there's any other endings or stuff you want to do, essentially it's like, it's not New Game Plus, it's like post-game, but the game's like over. Like there's no like, it's not post-game where it's like, okay, now you can go all this stuff and then you can fight the last boss again. It's literally just like, the boss is dead. Now you just got like other shit you can do, like the epilogue, essentially. You can just kind of like play through and kind of wrap whatever you want up. And then like when you get endings, I got 2 of the endings because there are only 2 girls I earlier pursued that weren't Irwin, and she didn't have like a romance ending, unfortunately for me. So, and then as soon as you got like one of the heroine endings, it just like would take you back to like right before you started the heroine ending. So there was that. So then you can like rewatch it and relive the dream of your waifu, anything like that. And then we get a fucking tutorial. It's like, what? But it kind of just like, it's like tutorial, and then it just like tells us how like the X game, or not, it's not New Game. I think there's New Game Plus as well, but it's like the extra stuff, like how it all goes down. So we're gonna go ahead and dive in and stuff. First of all, we wander around. We just talk to some people. Kiria's just like standing around, so we talk to him about a lot of crazy shit and stuff. And they just talk about how Rage looked up to him, and he based his life on him and being a good swordsman and stuff. And then we go hit waifu number 1 because respect for Altina. And it seems like there's been some romantic tension between them since the very beginning of the game, at least in my run. And that Erwin's been like egging it on this whole time. So we finally tell her that we like her under like the sacred elven tree or whatever, and then she gets like super embarrassed because apparently if you like confess your love under the sacred tree, you are now married. And she's like, oh my gosh. Oh Oh goodness, Ancient Elf customs are great. And she's like, I'm fine with it, but I don't know, something. And he's like, well, I don't know if I want to be married yet. I just wanted to like tell you that I loved you and stuff. I'm like a teenager. Like, what's going on? I'm not even from this world. And so she's like, well, maybe we can get them to take it back. Like the spirits or something. And he's like, no, don't worry about it. I want to stay with you forever. And she's like, oh, my boyfriend. And then the end. You get like official the end. So when the credits roll, there's no the end. It's just like credits roll, save your game, X, and then load like the X data. Fair enough. But this, it's like you get the whole like Japanese RPG like Finn. Oh goodness. And it makes like, and so the save file kicks you out for the confession. So then it's off to like waifu number 2, which is Yuki the sword. And so you're talking to her and she's like, well, I better get going. And he's like, no, what are you doing? You promised we'd always be together. And then they like argue because they always argue, and it's like adorbs. And if you're into this chick, you have to be into that, I guess. And then Rage confesses that he wants to be with her forever, and she smiles. And then we get the end there. And so it's a little less romantic. And that's all I'm doing. I'm not, I'm not going to do anything else. I tried talking to Korea a little bit because there seemed to be something there, but I didn't really pursue her that hard in the game, so I don't know if I have to keep like resetting like the town she's hanging in or like doing quests or whatnot. I was kind of just like, I'm good. Like, this is good enough. I got what I wanted out of this. Also, she might just not have a romanceable path. So I don't know. I would assume that like Elmina and Tsukio are romanceable, but it probably Rosalind and Siren, but I don't know. That's it for me. So there you go. That's Shining Blade. I think I understood most of it. The translation was decent for a lot of it. The next game I'm playing, Shining Arc, the translation, like the machine translation, is so much worse. Like, I was confused, and then I had like ideas about parts of that game, and then I would like later on someone would say something and I was like, I totally did not understand what was going on there. But we'll get to it in a couple weeks. You can come and see beautiful Shining Arc, but for now, that's all I got. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.